Hello there, and welcome to Football Manager 14 Tactics. I'm Phil. I want to talk to you today a little bit about a particular tactic I've been having a lot of success with on Football Manager 14. Now, I probably, like most people, arrived on Football Manager 14 with a fair few years of experience with the sliders and all that sort of thing, and then coming in and having this completely new system took me a long time to actually get used to. Certainly a lot of frustration and failed attempts, but I stuck with it and kind of took it back to basics, I think, a little bit with regards to how I set my team out. Stopped trying to do really fancy things, thought a little bit more about, I believe, a more realistic view of football, and then took it on from there, really. So the basic tactic here, we've got what is called 5-3-2. In reality, it's more like a 3-4-1-2, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So two strikers, obviously, target man up front, um, attacking forward, attacking midfielder, very much the kind of guy who creates his chances, flair player, does all that sort of thing. Defensive midfielder, guy who breaks up the attacking play, who really, he's your ball winner, as the name suggests, and your box-to-box midfielder, somebody who will get back when the defence is needed, but will also offer the support up front when needed. Central defence-wise, we've got three central defenders, two stoppers, and one cover, and obviously just regular goalkeeper. Now the one for me, which is the key point to this tactic, is these wing backs. This is the most important position in this tactic. Wing backs on attack, these are your main attacking threat here, basically, in terms of creating chances, that is. So obviously target man up front, these guys are whipping in crosses left, right and centre. Generally, I found within my matches, I'm getting in maybe 30 upwards, 30 to 50 crosses in a match, which is pretty good. And also means that if you have a really big guy up front, you're gonna create chances. Um, that's a given. But don't think this is a tactic where we're just lumping it up to a big man, a la West Ham. That's definitely not what it's about. Um, so you have fluidity is rigid. The number one key thing with this tactic, I'd say, is it's absolutely 100% solid. I'll show you some stats later, how I've done the league. But defensively, if you have good defenders, a good goalkeeper, you will not concede goals. 100%. It is absolutely rock solid. That's partly, I think, down to the rigid. So the defenders will defend 100%. You don't need defenders who are going to be high on passing. You don't need defenders who are going to be able to rampage up the pitch. You need them to do a solid job, heading, tackling, marking, aggression, all those sorts of things. Instructions wise, we play direct. That doesn't mean, as I say, we lump it up. It just means it's quick, very, very quick passes. A lot of short passes. We get a lot of passes in the game, but also, getting it up the pitch very quickly. Get stuck in. Now, that's probably a very important thing as well, because this is all about winning the ball off the opponent, this tactic. So it's really a very physical tactic. It's about getting in there, getting in the other team's faces. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of yellow cards flying around. Again, I'll show you some stats on that later. Few red cards, which I've learnt to kind of manage on there. But what it does mean is that your team physically will pretty much dominate most opponents that are out there, which is fantastic. It's definitely what you want. And a high tempo as well. So it's about playing very quick, direct football. Standard mentality. Generally, what I'll start a game off with, although I will change it to counter or attacking as well, as I see the game go on. However that comes out, I found all three work pretty well. And if I'm say 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go, then I'll even go defensive, and I've never conceded a goal when being defensive in the last 10 minutes. And this is after 3 seasons as well, so definitely extremely solid. In terms of player instructions, goalkeeper, he I get him to hit it long, basically, around whoever the best header is in central midfield, out of the kind of 3 of them. Generally, he'll go there, rather than doing it short, because, as I say, I want the ball to get up the pitch quick through there. Central defenders, I get them. So the cover, he passes it short. The two go direct. Main reason for that is I want these guys to pass it quickly out to the wing backs out here, and I want the cover defender to get in there, perhaps pass it through short to these guys or through into the middle, rather than kind of lump it up through the middle, which I find works pretty well. Wing backs, little bit differ on here. Actually, they're the same. They're just different orders. Get further forward. So, as I say, these guys are really about attacking. Stay wider. I want them to absolutely hug the touchline. Get right on the side of the pitch, and be almost like a winger. Cross more often, so they're all about whipping the crosses in and then cross aim for your target man. I mean, if you had 2 strikers up front who were both equally good, then it's not necessary, but I don't at the minute, so I definitely cross aim for that target man, and I'll show you some stats from him later, how well he does from it. These guys all about crossing. Interestingly, one of my best wing backs actually has quite poor crossing, yet he does rather well on the crossing, so it's a little bit interesting there, I guess, with how it works. It's all about numbers, getting the balls into the box. With these guys, they need pace. They need to be able to dribble, because they're taking it. They're taking it up right up the side of the pitch. Acceleration, pace, and all those things. But the advantage of having them as a wing back rather than having them as a midfielder or a striker is that they will, when you're getting attacked, when you're in your own half, they very much will drop back, and so you have that kind of either 5 at the back there, or definitely a more kind of like 3 and then a 4 with your 2 central midfielders, which, as I said, absolutely rock solid there. Midfield wise, so again, more direct passes from these guys, as I say, very much about getting it up there quick. Attacking midfielder, pretty much just leave. Now, in my 3rd season here, I've had the same player in the same position, Candreva. I've played around very much with his position, whether it's attacking midfielder, shadow striker, advanced playmaker. I've not noticed a great deal of difference, if I'm completely honest. Box to box, again, I've played with that, where it's been deep line playmaker, box to box midfielder. I'd say it's probably down to your preference and very much down to the player you play in that position. But I've always had a ball winning midfielder with defend, who is the guy who wins the ball, basically. Target man, again, kind of leave alone with instructions. Gets up there, does the business. Must have good heading, must have good jumping reach, and be physically very strong. You get a guy up there who can do those 3 things, and also finish as well. They will score you goals, buckets full of goals, basically. Even as I say, I play it in a support role, but I just find this guy gets buckets of goals. And then this is probably the only one I'm a little bit iffy with, which is the advanced forward. I've got instructions move into channels, so he's kind of about finding space. I've played around a little bit with having poachers, even complete forward, different things, and probably until recently, I'd never quite got it right. So this role here, where you would expect this person to be your main striker, was perhaps only getting 10 goals a season. Um, but recently, perhaps it was the players I was playing in that position more so than the actual role, because I found where I've signed this Domenico Berardi, decent player by the way. He's got 8 goals in 7 games with a really good average rating. So it could be that is actually to my advantage there. So what does that mean for the team? So let me show you some. Well, let me show you actually. First of all, let me show you how well we've done in the league. So this season, 2016, we have physically won the league. There's still 5 games left to go, but we physically won it. 26 games won, 6 drawn, only 1 defeat, which was a 1-0 away loss to Inter Milan, which was deservedly won by them, I must say. 85 goals for, but this is the stat which is important here: 13 goals conceded. Just 13 goals in 33 games, which I've never experienced a tactic in all my Football Manager years, probably 12, 13 years, of having a tactic which concedes so few goals. I have very good defenders, I would say. Maybe not world class. Certainly, they're all kind of at minimum 3.5 stars. Very solid, and I have a decent goalkeeper, but I wouldn't say that I have the best defense in the game by a mile, and that's the reason why. It's fully, in my opinion, down to the tactic. Goal difference plus 72. Well, that just wipes out anybody else really. Plus 72. There's been some big scores. Also, if I go into the fixtures and show you as well, in the league I have never conceded more than 1 goal in a game this season, which is just the pure strength of it. Which means that I can just outscore an opponent basically. And people can talk about Serie A and say, well, it's not as strong as the Premier League, but the reality is there's still some very good sides here: Juventus, AC Milan, Napoli, Inter. All very, very good. Unbelievably, looks like Roma might get relegated, but hey, works out well for Lazio. So previous season to this, again, won. 126, drew 8, lost 4. Best defence in the league again, plus 36 goal difference. These 2 seasons, the first 2 seasons, I won the league. Losing very few games, and using a majority of Lazio's original players, who I wouldn't say were the best in the world, but they're pretty decent. I'd say most of them are around about your kind of 3 to 3.5 star players. So pretty decent. But the difference I think made this season was just reinforcing that defence. I made a few signings in defence which just 100% made it rock solid, and with plenty of backup as well, because that's one thing which is important with this tactic, is the amount of yellow cards which you do get. As I say, I like my players to get stuck in, and they sure do. So actually, if I look overall, if we go on yellows here, you can see that Claudio Jacob here has 17 yellow cards in 36 games, so he's pretty much averaging 1 every 2 games or so. And then this is also important. So the wing backs, Lulic, Brizuela, Cavanda, they're all wing backs of mine, as well as Freitas. They're all quite high on the yellow cards as well. Now, this is something important which I was finding in my first season, is these guys will get yellow cards. You can see their tackles per game here are higher than most other players in my squad, so higher than my central defenders even, because they're tracking a lot of the pitch, all up the sides basically. So they're having to get back when necessary, and they're making those tackles. They will get yellow cards, and I've always found it's a very good idea that as soon as they get a yellow card, substitute them for someone else, because probably in previous seasons I mean, as you can see here, 2 of them have had reds this season. But in previous seasons, I've certainly struggled with red cards where they have just got booked, and it's nothing. It's always just out on the wing, a tackle, mistimed tackle generally, which they'll do, and then 2 yellows. It's never straight reds, I find. It's always 2 yellows. So it's something to be careful of. I generally now will, if they're on a yellow at half time, I'll just sub them. So it's important to have good backup on the wings, definitely. What you can also see is very high on the assists. Their crossing is phenomenal. I'll get on to that in a minute. Also on the assist wise, Candreva, the attacking midfielder, very good goals this season. Exceptional. Previous seasons haven't been so good, but certainly a lot better this season. As you can see, 13 goals in the league, only 6 last season, which was fairly poor. And I was thinking of switching him out, but I stuck with him. And 10 the previous season as well, which was pretty decent actually. And then goals wise, you can see my target man here, Duvan Zapata, 37 goals, 46 games. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, interestingly, I wouldn't say he has the best stats I've ever seen from a striker. He's certainly, where he does well is physically, which is very important in this tactic. His heading and of course his finishing is good, although I think when I got him his finishing was about 15 and that's been trained up a little bit, so that's good. Last season he struggled a little bit. It was more to do, I think, with him settling into the club rather than not being very good. Nearly replaced him again this summer with someone else, but decided not to, and very glad for that, as he's got 31 league goals in 33 games. Only paid 1.5 million for him as well, which was a bit of a steal. Genuinely just brought him as a backup. Had to use him due to some injuries, and decided to kind of stick with him because the second half of last season he really took off. So as I say, the one position which I had been struggling in was that attacking forward. Brought Berardi in January. It's now April, and certainly he's hit the floor flying. So I think it was more about quality rather than the actual tactic there. But we'll see. I'll give him a good full season before I make that judgment. It might be that I play around a little bit with that tactic a little bit more as it's ongoing. So that's the stats of my players. Let me show you some of the fixtures. So, as you can see, had a pretty good run of things this season. Where I've lost, I think not. So I lost away to Dortmund in the Champions Cup. Lost in extra time to AC Milan in the Italian Cup. Then lost 1-0 to Inter as well. And a 2-1 second leg defeat to AS Monaco. I won the first 3-1, so it wasn't too much of a problem. And I'm into the semi-final of the Champions League. Interesting point, Juventus, probably the best side in the league. Only ever lost once to them, which was in an Italian Cup final, unfortunately. But having played them quite a few times in Super Cups and now Champions League and in the league, this tactic worked exceptionally well against them, I'll tell you that. Going very well this season. As I say, don't know how I'm going to do in the Champions Cup. Last season's very much struggled in the Champions Cup. Didn't manage to qualify from my group, which was a shame, but did go on to win the Euro Cup. Not that it really means that much, I guess. But beating Tottenham, AS Monaco and Lyonnais along the way, so it's not just against, and CSKA Moscow, so it's not just against Serie A opponents that this tactic seems to do quite well. Does seem to do pretty well. As I say, struggled a little bit in the Champions Cup. Wouldn't say I had the hardest group either. Marseille, Valencia and Leverkusen, pretty average teams, I'd say, rather than top for that competition. Pretty good, obviously, in the overall terms of things. So it was a slight disappointment, but as I say, this season it's really been going on. So let me show you the real kind of power, I think, of this. Actually, I'll go back a second and we'll go to analysis, I think. So we'll go to my last game against Empoli, which it is a little bit one-sided. I'll just click on Juventus there. It is a little bit one-sided. I did win 8-0, which was a record. But and they're not at bottom of the league side. They're floating around the relegation area, but they're not within it. But really, I think where the stats are important here, if you look at crosses, you can see my wing backs, 27 from the right wing back, 33 from the left wing back. Now, completed wise, you may say, well, only 5 and 2 might have something to do with certainly this guy's crossing ability. But generally, when they do complete, it's a goal. Especially when you have a strong target man up there. You can have a look and see scoring chances. So the attacking midfielder and the two front guys certainly had their way. I mean, 6 shots, 6 on target, 4 goals. That's pretty phenomenal, really. Which is great. Passing wise, you can see as well. Goalkeeper, maybe something I'll work on. I may try going short with him to try and get that up. Certainly the right back's doing well. Left wing back, he's not my usual left wing back. He's more someone I'm bringing through. So, maybe something I need to work on there. But central midfield wise, pretty good. They generally will average well above the 85 to 90% area, which is what I'm looking for. Certainly, Biglia when he came on, 96.6, excellent there. This isn't a possession tactic. I think I certainly had 56% possession, I think, in this game. But in a lot of games, I found I can win fairly comfortably with only, say, 40 to 50% possession. The reason being that obviously is direct, and it's not about short passes, keep possession. It's very much about tearing up the pitch, and really taking it to your opponents. Average positions, this is probably the interesting one here. So as you can see, my wing backs very much pushed forward. So you can see rather than being a 5-3-2, it very much looks like a 3-4-1-2, which is really what I was aiming for, but I wanted that more defensive stability of having these guys as wing backs. I think if they were midfielders, they would be pushed up further, which probably against someone like Empoli would work quite well. But in a more kind of a match, say, against a Borussia Dortmund or a Bayern Munich, who I managed to beat in the European Super Cup, I think. It's important that these guys, while I want them to tear out the pitch and get those crosses in, when the opponents have the ball, they're very much kind of dropping back a bit and making those tackles in there, which is really important. Tackles wise, you can see guys on the wings making good tackles, and also my defensive midfielder, very important. He's very good at tackling, very aggressive as well. Good aggressive marking, tackling, teamwork and work rate, stamina, massively important. And actually, if I show you movement as well, why isn't this not showing? Oh, all players. There we go. You can see a lot of it going down the wings, running past opponents. You need wing backs with good pace to make this work. They've got to be able to dart past the opposing kind of right or left back if they're playing that way. Against different opposition, I've not found that they struggle. Really, I've always found that they've been able to run past the either left back, right back, or sometimes I've come up against people who also play wing backs, and I've not found too much of an issue there either, which is good. That's what you want, and certainly the left and right wing back here, the ones making the runs there very much, and that's what you want up the side of the pitch. Headers, you can see my target man here. 21 headers, 11-1, 7 key. So very much
to do with that ball into the box for a lot of the goals we scored in this game. Now, obviously, that was very much a one-sided game. If I pick, I think if I pick my last, where is it? Here we go. Roma. So the Rome derby. So in the Rome derby, I believe we won 4-0. But it was very much about us finishing our chances. I think again, good crossing, not as high as the Empoli game. As I say, it wasn't a domination like that game, but certainly very very high from our guys. Not a huge amount completed, but again, as I say, you only need a couple of chances, and if you have a good target man, you will score goals. As you can see up here, um, you know that one was from a corner, I believe, and certainly the target man's goal was very much from heading. Um, Again, movement wise, you can see on the pitch. Actually, sorry, average positions I want. Again, you can see that very much 3-4-1-2 rather than a 5-3-2. Playing against Roma, which very very narrow, which I think definitely played into my hands there. Exceptionally narrow, really. They're playing right in the middle, whereas we're very much a lot more spread out. These guys are very wide. Doesn't look so much on the average position, but compare it to Roma's a lot wider, which is what we want. We want those guys out wide. As I say, passing wise, I think we hold our own against most sides, even though it's direct. Certainly that's what we want. Okay, so training wise, pretty simple really. I set my team up. Focus is fitness. Might be a little bit strange. I don't deviate from this ever. The reason being that this team is about being physically very strong, really taking the game to the opponent. I want them to be going from the first minute to the 93rd minute, 100%. I've scored quite a few goals late on. I've also scored quite a few goals early on in the game as well. I think this definitely comes down to the fitness of my players. Especially those wing back positions. Those guys need to be very, very fit. You need to have decent backup. I pretty much have 2 first team players in those positions because I know that they're not going to be able to play every game in the season. And so you're looking probably at your 2 right wing backs, 2 left wing backs playing 25, 30 games each. So it's important you have good backup there. Match training wise, attacking set pieces. I've scored a lot of goals from attacking set pieces. I'll show you what I do for these. Set pieces wide. My crosses, very much near post. And at my near post is my target man. A lot of goals from that. Free kicks, pretty much let the guys do what they want on the free kicks. Not so much interested too much in that. Have scored quite a few goals from direct free kicks and a fair few from indirect as well. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's going. Maybe play around with that a little bit, see what happens. I never really had any brilliantly decent long throwers. I may change this next season, see how it goes to begin with, because a long throw in the box would work very well to a target man. In terms of defensive, what I've done is on corners kept back my wing backs because they're the quickest players in the pitch. What I was finding was I was conceding a lot of goals where the opposition would get possession from one of my corners, and then they would pass it up the pitch quickly to a very quick forward who would then completely outpace their centre back who I had back there, just annihilate them for pace. So I've kept my wing backs back because I know they're very quick, and fingers crossed I've actually done very well, and I can't remember a time when I've conceded a goal from one of my own corners, whereas I know in previous saves that's happened a lot as well. So very important there, I think. Get your set pieces right because again they can really save you in games, I think, especially where you're playing against teams which in the last few seasons where I've played Champions League games, things like that, against opposition who and even this season against someone like Dortmund who have been on paper a much better side than me. We've our set pieces is what has helped us out a lot in those games. And onto individual training for team members. Not done anything too fancy here, to be honest with you. Pretty much stuck to try to get positions right. Again, gone crossing for this young lad to get his crossing up. Wing backs wise, ball winning midfielders. Trying to stick them into the positions they're in to get their stats up. Overall, I think the guys have done pretty well. Couple of guys probably need to work on individually, but not done anything completely special there, to be honest with you, around there. If we go to comparison, so yeah, attacking wise, very important. Got good pace up front, as I say, very important. Good heading, second in the league for heading, second in the league for pace, first in the league for finishing. You get that right, you're going to do well. Midfield, pretty good as well. The only one place which probably struggle with a little bit is tackling. I think that's mostly down to when I play an AMC, so you're a central attacking midfielder, I go more for flair there rather than solid. That's my one position I'll probably allow to kind of be the person who's going to set up, do that little something special. But everywhere else, pretty strong. Long shots we're very strong on, and we do have a lot of shots in game. If I show you, for example, should I pick, say, Torino? Yeah, we'll our shots off target are generally a lot more than our shots on target. Where else would we have had quite a lot of shots? Say Padova. Just generating the match report here. Just wait for a second. Yeah, so you can see here 28 shots. A lot of them would be long range shots. I had thought about getting the guys to rein off that a little bit. To begin with, I was having my central midfielders take long shots because they had very good stats on long shots. What I was finding was I was getting 30 plus shots a game, but wildly off target. I mean, extremely off target. So I took that away. I've been thinking about going to working the ball into the box, but I don't think that's what I want to do because it's not the way we play. And I mean, to be fair, a fair few goals have come from long shots, and it's great when they go in. But also the other thing is a fair few have come from deflections, where perhaps a goalkeeper's made a save, couldn't hold it, and then a striker's gone in and stuck it in the net. So I'm okay with having high shots and not such a huge number on target. There, I mean, 5 clear-cut chances in that game. Happy with that. As you can see, I won this game 4-1, dominated on shots, but possession-wise, 48%. It's not a possession tactic. If you're looking to play like Barcelona and get, 70 plus possession every game, this is not the tactic which is going to do that. But it is 100% rock solid at the back, though. So I think that, for me personally, a very good start to progressing with the tactics in this game.
So here we are, a little bit more of a breakdown of the tactics for you. We've stuck 100% rigidly to this tactic. I've never deviated from this tactic in 51 games. I've never deviated from this tactic in 3 seasons, so way more than 51 games. As you can see, 51 games, 24 goals conceded, but 121 scored. That's pretty good. Conceding a goal every 196 minutes, so that's over 1 every 2 games, and we're scoring more than 2 a game on average, which is fantastic. In terms of goals, you can see very much probably we're scoring fairly early. We're still getting in late ones as well. 9 in 90 plus minutes, which all in 76 to 90, which very much put down to fitness training there, keeping the levels up. Goals types, place shots, powerful shots, headers very high, I think, 24, second highest out of all of the types of goals.
which is clearly crossing working very well. And 17 goals, assists from crosses, 46 from passes, which you would expect to be high, 19 from corners. So as you can see, set pieces, near post, put your target man on the near post, do a near post. Make sure it's an in swinging, so you use a right footer for the left corner and a left footer on the right corner. That will get you goals, 100%. As long as they have good heading stats, obviously. Yeah, so where do I want to go in the future with this tactic? Well, I want to obviously try this in England and Spain and other leagues to see if it holds up within there or if it's a kind of Italian area. I'd like to try it in lower leagues as well. I'm not 100% confident it would hold up so well, because what I've definitely found is where I've got in better quality players, the tactic has just gone on leaps and bounds, which would suggest to me that it's a tactic more suited towards um, better players, certainly stamina wise, ability, technique wise, in there. But it may work. You never know. And also perhaps tweaks this tactic. So again, I need to get this kind of area right up here. Maybe this is going to be working. And also in the future, I would like to try it with a sweeper as well. See how that works out. I don't have, we don't catch people offside that much, so wouldn't be that much of an issue there. And I'd like to see how that would work out in the long run as well. Just to do something a little bit different with it, perhaps. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If there's anything else you want to know, leave a comment. I'd love to know. And definitely like to hear anybody who's had any similar successes. Thank you very much.